The Sunset Limited is one of Amtrak's long-distance passenger trains running approximately 2,000 miles between Los Angeles, California and New Orleans, Louisiana, running 3 round trips every week. West of San Antonio, Texas, the train runs combined with the Texas Eagle, another long-distance train running from Chicago to San Antonio. With the former Southern Pacific Railroad launching the service in November of 1894, the Sunset Limited is the single oldest continuously used named train in the United States, the name having been used for over 130 years. Though sadly, the Sunset Limited would be known for being involved in a couple infamous accidents in the 1990s. The first one, which we should all know, was in September of 1993, when the train derailed after a barge lost in the fog hit a bridge on the Big Bayou Cannet in Mobile, Alabama, causing the tracks to kink, and as a result, the train would hit the misaligned bridge doing 70 miles per hour and plunge into the Mobile River. The aftermath was its single deadliest wreck in Amtrak's history. Sadly, only 2 short years later, tragedy would strike the train again.
It is the nightly hours of October 9th, 1995. Amtrak Sunset Limited, train number 1, was heading westbound through the night, running its usual route to LA. Tonight, the train consisted of 12 cars, a baggage car, and 11 superliners, with 258 passengers and a crew of 20 on board. The train was powered by 2 locomotives. Leading the way was GEP 32-8 BWH number 511, and trailing was EMD F40PHR number 398. The train had made its last stop in Tucson, Arizona earlier in the night, and the train was getting underway again, on the way to its next stops of Coolidge and Tempe before reaching Phoenix. Just after 1:30 a.m., the train was running through the desert outside Palo Verde, Arizona, doing roughly 60 miles per hour. The train was about to go through a curve and pass over an old trestle bridge once used by the former Southern Pacific as it raced on through the night. But then suddenly, the train derails at 1:35 a.m. Both locomotives and 8 of the 12 cars go off the tracks, with 4 of the superliners, 2 coaches, a sleeper car, and a dining car falling off the trestle bridge and landing in a dry creek bed 30 feet below. Out of everyone on board, there was only one casualty. 41-year-old Michael Bates, a 20-year Amtrak employee who was working as a sleeping car attendant, would be the only fatality, and over 100 more people would be injured. Being able to access the site would be rather difficult for rescuers, as this was in the middle of the scenic desert, so hopefully you can understand where this is going to go. Rescuers would have to drive off-road through the dried-up riverbeds to be able to access the site. As you would expect, people had questions. How did this train derail in the first place? How could such a peaceful, relaxing overnight train ride turn into this?
Quite contrary to what normally happens, instead of the National Transportation Safety Board, or the NTSB, approximately 90 investigators from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the FBI, looked into what could have caused the accident. Turns out this wreck was a matter of sabotage. When investigators were doing their work, a total of 29 rail spikes and a 19-foot section of track were found to have been removed, leaving a gap where the joint bar would have been. With the spikes removed, one of the rails was bent as much as 4 inches out of alignment, and when the train passed over the section of track doing 60 miles per hour, the train's wheel would fall between the rails and cause the consist to jump the tracks. With the rails being this way, you'd think that the last signal the train passed would show a stop signal, right? Unfortunately, this wouldn't be the case. Despite the disconnect in the rails, the signal remained green. For those that don't know how track circuits work, let me explain. A low voltage current is run through the tracks. If it's uninterrupted, the signal will show a clear aspect and the system would allow the train to proceed as usual. However, if the rail is broken, or if a train is running on said section of track, it would disrupt the circuit and tell the system that there's an obstruction and would set nearby signals to red, and the train would have to come to a stop. Whoever sabotaged the tracks managed to bypass the track circuit as the two disconnected sections of rail will be connected with a conductive wire and keep the track circuit closed, giving the impression that everything was alright and that the train could continue. The crew of the train couldn't be blamed because with the signal aspects as they were, there was absolutely no way to know if something was wrong, and with the train speeding throughout the night, the engineer would have little to no time to react, and even if he did have time to react and try to slow down the train even by a little, it still wouldn't have accomplished much. If you haven't noticed already, this accident shares details with another incident that happened almost 60 years prior, when on August 12, 1939, the jointly operated City of San Francisco train derailed outside of Harney, Nevada, much in the same manner that the Sunset Limited did. In that case, saboteurs removed 44 spikes and a 30-foot section of track, as well as forced the rails 4 to 5 inches inward. The saboteurs also covered the area with brown paint and tumbleweeds, as well as bypassing the track circuit to mask the damage that had been done. The FBI would follow multiple leads and arrest several individuals that they believed could have been capable of derailing the train, but nothing came from this. However, there was a clue. After the wreck, 4 typewritten notes were found near the scene of the wreck blaming the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, better known as the ATF, as well as the FBI, for the 1993 Waco siege, criticizing local law enforcement, signed by the Sons of the Gestapo, an anti-government extremist group. So it is fair to at least assume that this extremist group may have intentionally derailed the train, but there is nothing definitive. Oddly enough, one of the letters found at the scene was found by game designer, screenwriter, and author Neil Holford, who happened to be a passenger heading from Oklahoma to San Diego on that train that night. Like the previously mentioned 1939 wreck, to this day, no one truly knows who sabotaged the rails, although it's believed to be someone who has railroading experience, as they knew how to sabotage the tracks, yet be able to bypass the track circuit so the signal system would indicate that nothing was wrong and the train could continue on and derail the way it did.
After the accident, of the 4 superliners that fell into the creek bed, the 2 coaches and the sleeper car were repaired and returned to service, while the dining car sustained heavy damage. It was written off and is now used as a parts source for anything that's still intact. As for the locomotives, both suffered minor damage, they were repaired and returned to service. 511, which was painted in the Pepsi can scheme at the time, would be repainted into the Phase 4 scheme in 2000 before being repainted into Phase 5 in 2013. Today, 511 serves as a switcher for Amtrak's auto train service, being based out of the northern terminus in Lorton, Virginia. As for 398, it was painted in Phase 3 at the time, though it would be repainted into Phase 4 and would continue to work under Amtrak for a few more years until the arrival of the Genesis fleet. Sadly, 398 would be retired from Amtrak's roster in October 2001. For the next few years, it would sit on display at the Tennessee Central Railway Museum in Nashville, until it was acquired by the Regional Transportation Authority of Central Tennessee in August 2005 for the startup of their commuter rail service, Music City Star, operating between Nashville and Lebanon, which began operations on September 18, 2006. Following the RTA's acquisition of the unit, 398 would be repainted and renumbered, now operating as NRTX 121. The Music City Star would go through a rebrand of the service sometime around 2023, with the service being renamed WeGo Star, and the unit still runs around with them as of today.
As for the Sunset Limited train, the service continues to run today in 2025, running with GE P42 DC locomotives and 5 or 6 superliners, though the P42s will soon be replaced by the Siemens ALC-42 Chargers by 2027. Toward the end of the 20th century, there were some changes made to operations of this train. Between 1993 and 2005, Amtrak operated an extended service of the train to Florida, terminating in Miami beginning on April 4, 1993, to November 10, 1996, when the service was cut back to Sanford, Florida, as part of system-wide cuts. But thankfully, this was allowed the equipment to be maintained along with the auto train superliners at Sanford. The service will be re-extended to Orlando on October 26, 1997, and would run this route through 2005. During that period, the Sunset Limited would be both Amtrak's only coast-to-coast train as well as be their longest route, which is at its longest, which is nearly 3,100 miles. Unfortunately, on August 29th of 2005, service east of San Antonio was terminated as a result of damage caused by Hurricane Katrina. In late October, service between San Antonio and New Orleans, Louisiana was restored. However, despite CSX completing repair of the tracks in January of 2006, service east of New Orleans was suspended permanently, with NOLA being the current final stop for the service. Over the years, there have been attempts to re-extend service back to Florida, but were blocked mainly due to administrative and political obstacles. Thankfully, Amtrak restored service from New Orleans all the way to Mobile, Alabama, in the form of a new Marty Gas service, which began operations on August 18th of 2025.
Going back to just after the accident, on June 2nd, 1996, Amtrak rerouted the Sunset Limited on a more southerly route between Tucson and Yuma, Arizona, bypassing Phoenix altogether, with the nearest stop being Maricopa, a suburban community about 40 miles southwest. This would leave Phoenix as one of the United States' largest cities without direct passenger service, although Amtrak throughway motor coach service provides a link between the two cities. While Amtrak was reconsidering rerouting the Sunset Limited, at the same time, the Union Pacific Railroad, which had acquired the former Southern Pacific earlier that year, wanted to abandon a decaying portion of the Phoenix to Yuma West line, which had previously been used to serve Phoenix, due to deteriorating track conditions and very light freight traffic. By that point, the U.S. Department of Energy was the only customer who used the track to transport commercial nuclear fuel from the Palo Verde nuclear generating station. But after the 1995 sabotage, it was deemed too insecure. The Sunset Limited became almost the only train to use the Welton branch. Even with no opposing traffic, service was both slow and bumpy along that section of track. Sadly, as a result of these factors, the Sunset Limited would be rerouted entirely, and Union Pacific promptly put the 64-mile midsection of the Welton cutoff officially out of service for good. Today, the section of track the Sunset Limited derailed on, now known as the Roll Industrial Lead of the Phoenix Sub, is now used for rail car storage only. If you go to the scene of the derailment today, you can see a large gouge in the embankment created by the impact of where the derailed train once laid.
It has now been 30 years since this incident. Even today, the mystery of who sabotaged the tracks that derailed the Sunset Limited that fateful day remains unsolved. Will we ever truly know who derailed the train? Will we ever know why? Who knows? But I think we all can agree that hopefully Amtrak doesn't suffer a derailment like this ever again.